Okay, so for those of you who came in late, I wanted to have a discussion about logging. Not me telling you how you should log, because chances are your needs are different than my needs, and I have multiple projects, and every project has different needs. But I wanted to do a sort of top level thing of some of the popular libraries. We've used a bunch of these in production. There's some that I have never played with, but found them on NPM. So I'm going to ask people to say, like, are you using this one? So feel free to chime in. And then at the end, I'd like to have some of the discussion. Before we even get started, we're having a good discussion on some of these topics. So hopefully we can sort of pick that up again. And then when we're done with this, then we can stay here as long as we want, chit chat, hang out. So cool. All right, so let's get started. Logging libraries. Well,
might as well be.
Sometimes it's true. You just, well, it's working, so I don't care. It's not working. Well, oh crap. The famous console.log. For those of you who are new to Node, don't do this in production. Console.log is not asynchronous, so it will break your event loop or hold up your event loop. So just don't do that. Okay, so a real popular one is called Winston. Originally, it's part of the Flatiron set of packages that Nojitsu wrote many moons ago. We used this in our first big project all of last year, and it's still running in production. It's got a nice plugin architecture. It's got a lot of different transport schemes. So when you call, logger.error or logger.info, depending on the log level, you can set up different transports to send it. All right, I want to ship it to Kaushibi, or I want it to send it to a file, which is really, really nice. We take advantage of Mongo and Loggly, streams and file, and mail that we are using now. My biggest qualm with Winston, well, not only is the build currently broken on NPM, and Nojitsu isn't maintaining it, is the log rotation doesn't follow standard Linux log rotation. So normally in Linux, you log a file, or doing sort of normal file logging, file name, file name.0, file name.2, etc. File name, the original file name is always the latest log messages. Winston doesn't do that. It does, if you specify max files of 10, it goes no number through 9 or 10, and then overwrites 0. So it's always it's a rotating which one is the latest instead of always going to the first one. Which means that if you're trying to see the latest log, you have to find out which one has been updated most recently, and you can tail that, which is frustrating. Another log library that we're using on a new project now is called Bunyan. Bunyan is by Scott Trent. He's out of Joyent. I like Bunyan a lot. It's really simple to set up. It's inherently all streams based. So anywhere you can send a stream, you can send your node stuff that way. We are starting to use this both. It has built-in log rotation that works correctly, which makes me happy. We're also piping our log messages directly to a RabbitMQ server that we can then do various things with from there. And we're not on a dtrace platform, but if we ever are, Bunyan has dtrace hooks. Do people know what dtrace is? Raise a hand. Or who doesn't know? Who doesn't know what dtrace is? Okay, so that's like 8 other talks. But basically allows you to attach very low-level hooks into your application that get called. So it's almost like a callback function that you can attach at runtime. And if you're not attached, there's no performance hit for having it there. And it's supported on Smart OS, sort of on OS X, and
QNX?
Yeah, it's not on Linux, which is the
QNX.
Which one?
QNX.
QNX.
Yeah.
Okay. So dtrace is really cool, and I haven't played with it yet. I like to play with this much. It's on my list of weekend hobby things to try out soon. What's nice about this is that you can log in your production machine and be logging everything, but normally not actually doesn't go anywhere, so there's no performance hit. But then if you attach a dtrace hook to it, suddenly log messages start coming out, which is really cool. So you can actually see your production logs without having a performance hit on having them. I'm liking Bunyan a lot right now. There's others. There's Node RLog if you're in a React world. Vision Media, CJ Helwig, Emo guy's got his log.js thing. Are people using, so who has used or who is using Winston? one's using Winston? Follow land. Bunyan? Did I pick the log libraries that no one's using?
Stop logging.
Or you're not logging. Oh, so you guys are all on dev null.
Yeah.
Why are you on dev null? I'm just, oh, okay.
I generate 3 megabytes of log messages per second. I'm not going through those.
Interesting.
There's another one called log4.js. It might even be log.js or related somehow.
Yeah, log4.js is another one.
Yeah, and it's really very similar to Winston. I think it was a bigger one before that came along, but a little bit less, and like not the same architecture, obviously. It's not broken. So there you go.
All right, I'll have to write that one. All right, so that's this is the sort of next discussion. So if you're not sending to dev null, what do you do with your logs? We use files, we pump them to a database for a certain amount of time. We tried Logly for a while, didn't work out for us. Right now their logs are 4 hours behind, like now, which makes it hard for debugging the whole time. Paper Trail was pretty good, but we didn't want to pay them money. We're cheap.
Yeah, there's also different reasons why you log, right? So before I am doing what I'm doing now, I used to write software for satellites. And we distinguished between event messages and telemetry. And what you might call like high-level log messages. Like telemetry is stuff that you're going to look at later if something fails. So, and then event messages are things that have to be addressed right now. And then there's higher level things, who knows. So, I mean that's another good question. Is like why do people log? What are you getting out of your logs?
Well, I can tell you some stuff we've been doing. So we just started playing with Winston and all that. What we use it for, honestly, is a production version of what do we call it, functional tests or integration tests. Where, for example, we know certain things are supposed to happen. I'll give you a real life example. Something we ran into. Right now, our logs are low enough volume so we can kind of scan them, manually. But the types of things there's one of the calls that we have, and we know it's supposed to generate a token. And for one of our customers, it stopped generating tokens, and it was just a matter of basically what's happening is they had a very aggressive caching server. And so we need to put in a cache buster. And that's the type of thing we didn't think about it beforehand, so our proxy didn't cause this problem, but theirs does. And so we're that's kind of where we're at now. Our thinking in terms of, I think to answer your question about where we're trying to go with it, is this stuff I've seen in production before is you start actually using it for finding those edge cases and anomalies so that you actually can proactively fix what's going on in your system. We haven't figured out exactly how we're going to do it yet, but most likely it's going to go into some type of database, and then from there, analytics on top of it.
Yeah. One of the things that we've been doing, we're obviously not at 5 megs a second for our log, which that's pretty high level, but we take advantage of RabbitMQ as sort of a distribution point for all of our events. RabbitMQ is an AMQ server, so it's sort of events and that sort of thing, and it supports streams, which is cool. There's an Node AMQP stream module as well. So we stream our logs from our application servers to a RabbitMQ, and they go into a non-persistent queue. So meaning if no one's listening, they get thrown away. But if someone wants to listen, once you start listening, then you start getting those messages. And you can register, because they're all JSON, you can register for certain types. So you can say, I only want to see error or debug or whatnot, or I want to search for a certain string. And then you can do it at your dev station, I want to see what's going on in production, start getting streaming logs, which is nice. Yeah.
My company makes a product called Fluently. It's open source. I actually have some stickers.
Cool, we like stickers. Come get some stickers
It's
afterwards.
a log collector, so you can have your logs on any machines, and then you can just have them be sent anywhere. Pretty simple.
What was the name? Fluent D?
Fluent D.
Yeah.
Oh, Fluently. Yeah.
And how do you compare to Logstash or Paper Trail or some of the other ones?
I
Putting you on the
don't
spot,
use
I know.
it, so not really my area of expertise. I'm sorry.
So we'll go read the docs afterwards. But Fluent D stickers are cool.
So when you stream it to AMQP, do you have anyone subscribe?
So no. I mean developers. So we have a little console app that developers as part of our repo that they can run, which allows them just basically registers to the AMQP server and they start getting streaming logs. So then they can filter dynamically. But one of the nice things about Bunyan is it's all JSON messages. it's really easy to write filters. So NodeJS streams, you can use transforms to say I only want these certain items, and then feed them through to the console. And then from Rabbit, we can also tie in with Logstash, which can output to our syslog and other MongoDB and some other things. So we sometimes will, if we know that like when we do a production deploy, we will start logging to Mongo for a period of time around the production deploy until we're happy that things are running okay, and then we'll tear it down.
We used Logstash before. It was pretty good because it has the idea of pipeline. Basically, you have connectors talking to all kinds of sources, and you have destinations talking to your different targets. And in the middle, you can have a bunch of handlers which will handle the transformation or whatever. But Logstash was in Ruby, and I believe this JS version of Logstash. And what we did before, we copied log file using Logstash from the file system and pump into a Elasticsearch cluster. So that gives us a very nice index so we can search through all the different things.
Yeah, I want to play with the Elasticsearch.
It's very nice.
Oh, okay.
A question, so you're using RabbitMQ. So what are you doing? You're going, Winston, and then Winston's pushing into Rabbit?
So we have two apps that we have that are running production. Well, one in production and one that's going to go into production for next week. The one that we've had for a while goes from Winston to a Winston plugin that, actually I don't think I've even open source. No, there's a Winston AMQP module, file transport, that goes to RabbitMQ. And then from RabbitMQ, it goes into an exchange that if no one's listening, it gets thrown away. But if there's a queue that's registered that's listening for that, then that queue starts firing out to whatever client you have. And then we'll do the same thing with Bunyan. We just won't use the Winston AMQP module, we'll use the Node AMQP streams module.
Is this the same RabbitMQ servers you're using for processing? Is it only used for logging or for other real data?
We run two instances, so we run one for logging and one for jobs, mostly because I'm terrified of the two colliding. I'm sure that they would be fine, but I didn't want to risk it. We sort of brought up the logging system afterwards, and we didn't want to touch our existing running job system, so we brought them up separately. And maybe someday we'll decide to merge them. I think that sort of legacy, I think that product will probably stay in its current form because it's now shipping to military customers, and they don't like change.
Yeah.
So they're happy with that. So we're gonna probably leave that as is.
Unrelated to this talk, what are you using for Node library for RabbitMQ?
We're using the AMQP that's in, actually, there's a Node AMQP.
Yeah.
Don't use the one that's in NPM. Use master from GitHub.
Yeah, okay.
The NPM one is.
Well, they just
Yeah.
implemented the version finally, right? That's the.
Oh, did they? I hadn't picked that up. We've been running off of GitHub.
Less than a month ago.
Okay. Thanks for that tip. Is that the same one you're using, or are you using something else?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's I'm trying to remember. It's just Node AMQP or whatever, right?
I think so.
I actually was experimenting with using another one.
Yeah, closely.
Yeah, that's the one we're using.
Yeah.
I think NPM is down right now. Can you hit it?
Oh, sorry, not
NPM
npm, just .com. Do you know what so Nodejitsu set up a mirror?
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
of course they have a mirror, but is the mirror down, or is it just NPS? Like, can you do an NPM search?
NPSJS.org on HTTPS, but maybe you can hit it. You can't hit it
Oh,
right
I don't even know what I
There's-
have.
yeah,
I don't know what I have. I think I was publishing packages earlier today, so I'm sure I'm set to run.
Yeah, that's something that people need to look at the logs more often. It's like NPM, like the NPM system.
Do people run NPM local mirrors? No, we don't.
It's for a subset.
No, we're
Subset.
still doing a local cache for like all the developers.
Yeah. NPM, ruin my day sometimes.
So, but did you hear any of the discussion about a month ago about like the peer-to-peer NPM?
I was on vacation when that
Oh.
was going on, and like I was like trying to like be completely disconnected, but
No,
I
no,
checked
no. That's
Twitter.
yeah. That's what people are talking about. It would be like torrent based, and then but they don't want to do that until we can layer on top a like some sort of trust system, which is what I'm doing in my cookies free time.
Not to hijack you, so maybe when you're done, I'm
Yeah.
curious if anybody's interested in NPM via the private hosting.
Yeah, we can talk about it. Let's get through this
Yeah.
logging, but that's a good topic. Great, that's all I have. Anything else on logging stuff? People have got horror stories or?
Very stupid question, but like, with the libraries like Winston and Bunyan, I mean, is it literally just providing a transport mechanism and that's like their kind of like core value?
Bunyan and Winston approach logging in different ways. I mean, Winston tries to be the be-all, end-all of like everything when it comes to logging, and even they do things like let's just pull up the. They'll do things like you can do performance checks. Here's like the top level things. So like you can do profiling and it adds a log message. It's sort of the be-all of end-all of everything. But basically it provides an object library that you can pass around throughout your application and call a common set of log commands. Whether you just call Winston.log and you pass the log level and then a message or an object or whatever. Bunyan, I think, is, in my opinion, I think Bunyan's a little more lightweight.
And the reason why I was asking that, I mean, another good option, you know, we've used on the Java side, and I think there's a JavaScript library for it, is Kafka. Because it's persistent, it's faster.
What is it?
Kafka, it's Apache Kafka. It came at LinkedIn, one of the guys who released it.
The pub sub.
Yeah, but
Oh, okay.
it's really, it's like LinkedIn scale logging is what they originally created it for.
Yeah. So as you said, we use the set box as well. And the problems that we run into are, we have sort of two types of logs, right? You have sort of the debug logs, like what's actually happening on the server, and you have metrics type logs about like how many users are doing X, Y, and Z and at what time. And one of them gets like slurped up and put into Splunk, and the other gets eventually thrown into Kafka and eventually ends up in Hadoop.
Splunk is super cool.
Which one are you using Kafka for your just like debug logs or for your user event logs?
That's more for metrics.
Okay.
Yeah. We have an analytics engineering team who know a lot more about it than I do.
Is Splunk really expensive?
Yeah.
It's super cool, but you gotta watch how much you put into it because you pay per.
They charge you by how much you ask them to ingest.
Not startup friendly.
No, certainly
No
not.
doubt.
Alternative would be graphite. And if you were here months ago, you learned about graphite. I mean, does that sort of answer your?
Yeah, just trying to understand how everybody else is doing it.
Yeah. Our biggest problem was like what to log. Like okay, like we chose log4j.s and that was great, it worked fine, and it's like okay, well now, this was kind of how we stumbled upon CLS. Was like, well, like how do we organize them? How do we do analytics? How do we know which user, which this and that? And so handling that was kind of our biggest problem, not so much the actual library.
How do you guys handle like logging exceptions and that sort of thing?
Is that for anyone or?
I don't know.
Us? We're still building our node solution on. You might know more about this.
Like what kind of? I mean, what do you mean an exception?
If you're-
Like, I mean like.
If your node app crashes, like
Oh.
you probably want to be notified, presumably.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, we use other tools that are underneath Node.
Mhm.
We don't use Node to say that Node is crashed.
Yeah, that's definitely what we're investigating.
I mean, you can obviously in your top level process that on uncaught exception, which you should be tearing. Like if you get that, you should be killing yourself. But you can at least send a log like and then set a timeout for 10 seconds to sort of hope that it gets to your log system and it self-destructs.
Yeah, last talk, guy talked about what's the guy's name? Can't remember.
But that's Adam Crabtree.
Yeah, he talked about try catch, which is a little library to, I guess he used domains or whatever, so you can catch stuff, and it was really cool. But then there's other people who say you should use something like you were talking about, that just let it crash and then restart it.
He was
You
right
never know
there.
what caused it.